with a brand new series. House, Thursday at 10, just days after the States on Sky 1 HD. This is Sky World News with Philippa Hall.
The top stories on Sky World News. The United States says it's foiled a major terrorist plot organised by agents linked to Iran to blow up the Israeli and Saudi embassies in Washington and murder the Saudi ambassador. Hamas and Israel have signed an agreement to secure the release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who's been held hostage in Gaza for 5 years. The deal involves a swap with 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. And the fall of Colonel Gaddafi's final stronghold appears imminent, with Libya's interim government forces pushing deeper into the deposed leader's hometown of Sirte. 2 men have been charged in connection over the alleged plot in the US. One of the suspects is still at large. The US Attorney General's warned Iran that America will hold it accountable for its actions. The US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the plot was stranger than fiction.
We will be consulting with our friends and partners around the world about how we can send a very strong message that this kind of action, which violates international norms, must be ended.
Let's get more now on this alleged plot. And in California is the Iran expert Arash Aramesh, who's at Stanford University Law School. Good morning, Mr. Aramesh. Thank you very much for joining us. America says it's going to hold Iran to account. And what actions do you think the US will take in response to this?
First of all, the complaint that was filed today in the Southern District of New York, it's a 21-page complaint by the U.S. government against 2 individuals, one an Iranian-American citizen and the other one an Iranian still at large in Iran. But we have to wait and see what happens in the trial. I'm assuming a lot of this material is going to be very classified, so we won't have much access to it. But the next weeks and months are going to determine the outcome of the trial and the level of cooperation of this man, Mr. Mansour Arbasiri, who has so far been very cooperative according to federal officials. We have to see what comes out of this, and we have to see what information is going to be available. But if these accusations stick, and if the U.S. Has enough evidence to support that a state-sponsored plot by Iran was to be carried out in Washington, D.C. to assassinate a high-ranking diplomat, it's going to have far-reaching consequences for the Iranian government.
And what about Saudi Arabia? They say they're not going to allow this to pass. How are the Gulf states viewing this?
The countries in the Persian Gulf have always been very cautious and very worried about Iran. Iran is a big country. It's very influential in the region. And in the past few years, it has spread its sphere of influence throughout the region. Again, if these accusations turn out to be true, there is going to be some measure of retaliation. It may not be public. The Saudis have so far restrained themselves to making very few statements. But again, Iran and Saudi Arabia are old rivals in the region, and the Saudi government will not let these threats go without a response. Again, unfortunately, this is going to be destabilizing for the region if it turns out that the Iranian government was actually behind carrying out an attack on U.S. soil against a high-ranking Saudi diplomat.
And if it is proved true, who in Tehran would have sanctioned this, and why would they have sanctioned this?
According to the federal complaint, the accused was in contact with someone who's allegedly a IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guards Force official. It is not clear who this person really is and whether he has contacts with the Quds forces, which is the special operations outside. It's the wing of the IRGC that carries out outside operations in foreign territories. If this was a state-sponsored plot, then the highest-ranking officials in Iran, who have control over the IRGC would have been involved. However, quick cost-benefit analysis, it's rather odd that the Iranians would risk so much at this time to try to assassinate somebody here. So the possibility that this might have been some rogue faction within the IRGC trying to carry this attack out is not completely legitimate.
Have the Iranians engaged in similar operations like this in the past?
Well, the Iranian government has carried out a number of operations in the past. Specifically, though, they tried to kill opposition figures outside Iran. In the 80s and early 90s, they carried out a number of attacks on European soil. In 1980, actually, they killed an individual in Washington, D.C. In the early 90s, after a number of attacks in Europe, most specifically the attacks in the Mykonos restaurant in Germany, the Iranians came under tremendous pressure. They were isolated, so they stopped carrying out such attacks. As far as American individuals and Americans on U.S. soil are concerned, the only plot that comes to mind is the retaliation against U.S. Navy Captain William Rogers III, who was a commander of the USS Vincennes, the U.S. Navy ship that shot down an Iranian airliner in the late 80s. They tried to, it was a pipe bomb in San Diego, but that plot didn't go anywhere. Again, Iran does have a history of state-sponsored terrorism. They've been the prime targets of the bombings in Argentina in '94 against the Jewish Cultural Center in Buenos Aires. But we have to wait and see exactly what sort of information and proof and evidence the U.S. government has to offer. One quick note here, though. The high-level representation today that we saw in the Attorney General's press conference shows that the U.S. government has taken this very seriously. Attorney General Eric Holder, FBI Director Robert Mueller, and other officials showed up. This is a very high-ranking top brass of the U.S. law enforcement, so it is not just some accusation that is going to go away easily.
Mr. Arash Aramesh in California, thank you very much for your insight on this morning. More now on the agreement between Hamas and Israel to free Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit. The country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke ahead of an emergency cabinet meeting to approve that deal.
I believe we reached the best agreement that was possible to reach at this time, a time of storms that are rocking the Middle East. I don't know if the near future would allow us to achieve a better deal or a deal at all. It is very possible that this window of opportunity was created in the circumstances of the time. It is very possible that that window of opportunity would close.
Well, Middle East correspondent Emma Hurd has the latest now from Jerusalem.
Well, we've been hearing more details of the deal from Khaled Meshal. He is the supreme leader of Hamas. He's based in Damascus and he's been addressing the Palestinian people live on television in what was quite a triumphant speech. He described it as a great national victory. He said in terms of the details that 1,000 prisoners in total would be released. What's going to happen is going to be a two-phase deal, 450 in the first phase, including 27 women who are the total number of Palestinian women inside Israeli jails. Also among that 450, 350 Palestinian prisoners who are serving life sentences. And then a couple of months later, 550 more. Now, in exchange for the first 450, the Palestinians, Hamas in Gaza, will return this 25-year-old soldier, Gilad Shalit. He's had 5 birthdays in captivity now. He was a young conscript. In military service is mandatory here. He was snatched during a battle just on the outskirts of Gaza, taken back there, and his fate has really been in the balance ever since. But the deal has been done. The Palestinians very much portraying it as a success, certainly from Hamas's point of view. Israel also saying that it's done its duty in bringing this soldier home. In terms of the atmosphere created for future peace negotiations, on the one hand it's good because this was an open sore between Israel and the Palestinians, the captivity of this soldier in Gaza. On the other hand, it could complicate things because this is a deal that's boosted Hamas in Gaza, and of course it's Fatah in the West Bank and the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that could be threatened by that, and he's the one who is meant to be talking to Israel.
Western leaders have condemned the jailing of Ukraine's former Prime Minister, Yulia Tymoshenko, saying the verdict was politically motivated. Moscow's also criticised the ruling as having a clear anti-Russian subtext. Sky's Enda Brady reports.
She was the heroine of Ukraine.